Save the Semantics, episode 52. It is Sunday, December 16, 2018. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on about current topics, things that are occupying my mind, and etc. Finished up my tests for the quarter a few days ago. I thought they went alright. Haven't gotten all of my grades yet, but so far I am relatively satisfied with what I've received. Of course, I always think that I could do better, so I'll try to make some improvements in the upcoming quarter and whatnot. Just make some general changes, I guess. Other than that, I've been just enjoying my break. Finally have some time to take my mind off of school, not have to worry about any exams and whatnot. It's gonna be, I'm thinking a little ahead, but it's gonna be interesting when I won't have to worry about school anymore. Because just academics in general is always something that's occupying my mind, even when I'm not. Even when I'm on break, like I'm still thinking about grades, and then the next thing, what's next? What classes am I taking next? What kind of schedule is coming up next, and things like that. It's never not a time where I'm not thinking about school, I guess. There's always sort of that thing just sort of occupying the back of my mind. So I'm thinking like what it would be like just after I graduate, just it's going to be work now, I guess. That's just going to be what I have to worry about, sort of actual life things outside of school, Not saying that school isn't a facet of life, I guess. It's just now that you have to take care of other things, there's other responsibilities that you have to account for outside of academics, the sort of the transitioning into adult life, I guess, is sort of what I'm anticipating. I think one of the things that I would definitely have to get accustomed to is just the fact that I won't have to worry about like some assignment being due and whatnot, just sort of that kind of mentality, which is one thing that I'm definitely looking forward to after graduating, for the most part, I have enjoyed school. I know some people will probably say otherwise. Of course, I've made my complaints in past episodes about how I feel about classes, and I think those are just some generalities that most people can agree on. But I do enjoy, I enjoy learning for the most part, depending on, circumstances, depending on the teacher, depending on my mood and my sort of attitude toward the class, and how motivated I am to sort of participate and be engaged with the class. But I do look forward to going to class, for the most part. I think that it just sort of, if you take into account like the fact that I've been in school for, if you think about, since like not considering preschool, since like kindergarten, that's like almost like 14, 15, 17 years of school, right? Which is just kind of crazy to think about, just the fact that that's just been your entire life, it's not really a engaging thought, to be honest. It's just sort of something that's just kind of been lingering, I guess. And outside of school, I don't know, just something that's going to be like a stepping stone in the future, I guess. Outside of school, see, I've been just talking about school the whole time, but outside of school, just sort of been relaxing, trying to catch up on some reading, and playing a lot of Smash. That's sort of what I've been doing. I'm finally starting to get a hang of it. I don't know about finally, but I am sort of starting to get a hang of it. Initially, like when I started playing. It was hard playing against the top level CPUs are incredibly difficult. I was getting my ass handed to me online as well. Online players are pretty notoriously competitive for sure. I kind of slipped into a bit of a hole right there. So that's something that I'm just getting used to. Don't have like a main yet. I've noticed though, there's just so many characters. Like I'm trying. Usually, what I like to do, this is sort of like the strategy that I had for the last Smash, was that I try to get like a decent grasp on all the characters. But this time around, there's just so many characters. So I know that I'm going to be putting in a lot of hours into this one for sure. And I'm pretty, I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot of different modes to play, which I'm kind of happy about. I owned and I still own the 3DS Smash 4, so there's not a whole lot of, I guess, of like first-person modes on there. Like the main sort of attraction for it, for me, was being able to play online for free, because the 3DS Nintendo online play was free, and for the Switch you do have to pay for a monthly subscription. It's not that expensive by any means, but I guess that's sort of the one downside of it. But other than that, I think there's definitely a lot of improvements for my gaming experience. Just being able to traverse all these different types of stages and adventure modes and all that is definitely an improvement for sure. You've probably noticed that my voice still kind of sounds like I'm kind of under the weather, which I am. I'm still kind of recovering, quote unquote recovering. So it sounds like I don't really have a whole lot of energy, and I don't. I don't have a ton of energy at the moment. I've been taking cough syrup, and I'm not really like a drug user by any means, but yeah, it really does feel like a sedative. It feels like kind of like a depressant, because I know I used to think it was like a joke when rappers talked about drinking cough syrup, or mixing it with other drinks and making lean. I don't know what I'm talking about. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I'll probably just do my own research, but I know that a lot of rappers take cough syrup as like it's something that you can just take, that's just on the shelves. It's not over the counter. Or is it over the counter? Is that the right term? It's a non-prescription medicinal thing, so it's like you can just buy it off the shelf. So I've been taking that for the last few days, just trying to. It helps with sleep and stuff, and it's definitely something that helps put you to sleep for sure. So I'm not really surprised by how a lot of artists have talked about it, using it to I guess inebriate themselves in a way. On the box it says that not to use it while driving, because like it's bound to like inhibit your, or what's the word, sort of I guess put a restriction on your motor skills in a sense, so don't use vehicles and stuff like that when taking cough syrup. I guess that's sort of one takeaway that I've had when I've used cough syrup. Oh man, yeah, I'm out of it today for sure. I don't even know why I decided to record. I think it was just sort of like something that I kind of wanted to do. Just get out here before the rain and sort of get some things off my chest in a way. What's something that I can talk about that's a little more interesting? Yes, was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago I saw Bohemian Rhapsody in theaters, and I wasn't really anticipating it by any means. I've never been that much of a Queen fan. I like their music, but I'm not like the biggest Queen fan, so I didn't really have that much expectations going into it. And I was just sort of like, yeah, why not? Let's just go watch it. I thought it was all right, but it's definitely probably one of the most cliche movies that I've seen in a long time, and I'll get into that in a moment. I thought Rami Malek did a pretty great job as Freddie Mercury. I didn't like. I don't really know that much. I didn't know that much about Freddie Mercury or Queen, for the matter, going into it. So I thought he did like a pretty good job, considering the lines that he was given. I thought he was sort of portrayed this very charismatic and like dramatic persona, real life persona, pretty well. And I do have a lot of criticisms about it. I did enjoy the film though, just sort of a preface, but I think that the movie definitely defaulted on a lot of things, a lot of cliches. And I think starting off, I think one of the biggest issues is just like how the plot is very sort of vanilla, and it doesn't really. I feel like it doesn't really go in depth with any of like the the issues that the band faced. I felt like a lot of it was just sort of surface level. Like they never really like they never I felt like they never really delved into a lot of what Queen was, you know? Like I still didn't really know that much about the other band members, which is kind of I don't know, kind of sad. Like I know that the focus of the movie is on Freddie Mercury for the most part, but I felt like if they'd like talked about the other, you know, band members a little more, it would have been a little more engaging. Just sort of, I felt like they just sort of gave them like general character traits without actually like discussing their background. You know, it was just sort of like, you know, Freddie sort of stumbled them, you know, on their band while, you know, after he got off work, and then you know, they were all in college, I guess, and so they sort of met up and they decided to, you know, form a band, I guess. I don't know. It was just sort of, it felt very typical, like it wasn't very like engaging, in my opinion. And I think that sort of, it sort of created like an issue with the plot for sure. Like I felt like it just didn't like talk about like going into the movie, I didn't know that much about Queen, and coming out of it, I still don't know that much about Queen. I think that's sort of the biggest problem. I think that's one of the issues with a lot of biopics, where they, you know, the focus is on like a historical figure who's, you know, very interesting, who has sort of like this very, who has had like a very, you know, who's led a pretty interesting life. But I just sort of felt like it was just sort of bare bones Hollywood kind of tropey schlock, you know? That's the best way I can describe it for sure. I think the best thing going for the movie was the music. The music was great. The way they sort of incorporated the, you know, sort of the actual music from Queen's discography into the movie was pretty great. It was because it looked like, I don't know how movies do this. There's probably some technique that how they do it, but when Rami Malek is singing, it actually looks and sounds like sounds like Freddie Mercury. It seems like the music is actually coming out of his voice, you know. So I thought that was fantastic. I thought the audio quality was pretty great. I liked the cinematography. Cinematography was one of the better aspects of the movie. There were some pretty interesting shots, I think. I'm not like a film critic or like like a film lover by any means. I do like films and love films, but I'm not crazy about it. But I thought the cinematography was pretty great. Just sort of the transitioning shots, including one where this one got a lot of laughs out of the theater. Where it was sort of setting a establishing shot. There was like a rooster, and then it immediately cut to I think it was John singing Galileo for the part of Bohemian Rhapsody, and it sounded like he was like screeching like a chicken, and I thought that was pretty funny. And you know, I think there were some decent laughs here and there, but all of it's sort of kind of most of it kind of fell flat for the most part. It was much more, dramatic more than anything, and I think that I thought that sort of the tone for the movie was I was kind of like very, again, typical. Typical is like this one word that I'd use to describe this movie. Typical cliche, sort of bare bones minimum kind of movie. I thought, they definitely did put effort into the movie. I just don't think they put enough. The Another thing I think I can sort of credit the movie for is the decor, the costumes. That felt pretty, like, realistic for the most part. Again, I didn't grow up in that era, 1980s, but definitely felt like it was faithful for the time that it was taking place in. In terms of, like, now going into sort of the cons and my sort of the big criticisms I have of the movie. Again, I mentioned the plot sort of being meandering and not really connecting at all. Another thing is the dialogue. The dialogue was pretty bad. It was pretty atrocious. When I was watching the movie, it didn't really bother me as much. But looking back on it, like, just some of the lines are just so, I don't know, just so contrived and so artificial. Like, it was just like, we're fucking Queen, god damn it. They didn't say that, but they had lines like that, No, 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 this was the line. It's like, I'm Freddie fucking Mercury. It's like, come on. He didn't say that in real life. That just doesn't sound like anything realistic. It was toward the end of the movie when he revealed to the band members that he had AIDS, and then there was fucking Freddie, you're a legend. He's like, you're goddamn right, I am. It's like, what? No, nobody says that. It's just so unrealistic, If you try to, like, make a sort of like a comparison thing of that, lines of dialogue in a movie to dialogue in real life, it's just so, you just notice it immediately. It's like, oh, it just kind of takes me out of the movie now, like especially, I don't know if I'm gonna be, I'll still enjoy these types of movies for sure. It's just that knowing, like, sort of how those types of movies are structured, it just sort of takes me out of it. There's one scene in particular where it was Freddie was having a fight with his wife, and because he was, I don't know, he wasn't talking to her, I guess, because he was coked out, and he was excuse me, I don't know, he was just planning to have like an orgy with a bunch of gay dudes, and she comes over, and then she talks to him about it and shit. He reveals that he's bisexual. I think that was the same. No, it was a different scene. All these scenes with him and his wife sort of kind of mesh together because they're all pretty similar. No, he reveals that I forgot what it was exactly, but she leaves. She, like, storms out. He goes after her, and she goes into, like, a taxi, and then he opens up the taxi door to try to talk to her, and then they talk for like 5 minutes while the door is open. And I feel like, if I was like the taxi driver, I would have been pissed off because, like, the inside of the car is getting wet and shit. And it was just one of the most, just standing in the rain drama scenes are just some of the most, like, no, I mean, yeah, I feel like it just wasn't done that well, It's just, he was just sort of standing out there, and then he was just talking to his wife, and then Paul, his, like, lover, tries to talk to him, and then he's like, he kicks him out or something, It's just so, I don't know, it's just kind of contrived and cliche. So I think the dialogue was definitely one of the weaker points of the movie. It just was, I understand what they were going for, Some of the line, it was just, like, there was another line that was like, I was like, well, come on. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Like, they're just spelling it out for the audience, Like, nothing is left unturned, There's nothing that's like, well, I wonder what happens to this character. No, they just say it, like, what happens, Which is fine. It's a historical historically based movie, but it's just like they don't really leave any sort of imagination for the audience at all. And I get it, it's not really that type of movie, but I feel like to add some dramatic tension, they could have done that, but they don't do any of that. There's no tension in this movie. That's the one thing. There's like absolutely no tension in this movie because because you feel like you can predict everything that's going to happen, beat for beat, story point from story point. It's just so drawn out. There was another line. It was with Mike Myers, who was like a record label. Goddamn, I can't talk. He plays a record label manager, or like he's sort of the top dog for a record label, and he has Queen signed on. Queen is trying to push Bohemian Rhapsody as like the single for their album, and he doesn't like it because it's 6 minutes long and he feels like it's way too meandering and shit. Blah 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 blah. So Queen walk out on him, and then Freddie Mercury, before he walks out, he says, "You'll be remembered as the man who lost Queen," and that was just like, come on, who says that? Nobody says that. It's just like it's just the most generic cliche, just film 101 dialogue that you could write, And I know that during the shoot they had like some reshoots for the film, which is fine. I know that it can be beneficial, but it just seems like they kind of rushed it. Going back to sort of the storyline and the plot for the movie, I guess one of the things that sort of bothered me was like how I felt like there wasn't really a sense of transition from time to time, because like the characters for the most part they looked the same. Freddie's like hairstyle changed over the movie, and some of the other band members' hairs changed too, but they never they never looked like they aged, and I felt like it was like it should have been like a transition. They should have added some makeup to show that they had aged, but they hadn't, because I know they met in college, so they were probably in their early 20s, right? And toward the end of the movie, they're older. I don't know. I know Freddie died in his 40s, 45, right? And so the last show they played they were probably all in their late 30s, early 40s, I guess. So it's like, what the fuck? Like, shouldn't they, like, it felt like they never aged at all. The most they probably aged was like 8 years, but it was probably a span of way more than that, so that kind of bothered me a little bit. I know it's just kind of a minor thing, I guess, but like they showed like the parent, like they showed Freddie's parents like aging, like they added some gray hair and shit, but like for him he doesn't look that much older, and that kind of was just sort of a little quirk, I guess. Despite all the things that I've just mentioned, I still enjoyed I still enjoyed the movie. I think the music definitely was the highlight of the movie. They're all kind of, the songs are still kind of stuck in my head now. As I don't really know if I can really recommend this movie. If you're a fan of music, sure, check it out. If you just want to have like it's a popcorn flick. It's sort of, it's not really, I didn't really think it was all that engaging. I thought it was just sort of like, it's sort of like a movie that you just sort of turn on, just for the hell of it. If it's on TV, you'll watch it. It's just kind of that kind of movie. But I thought the performances were solid for the most part. The dialogue and sort of the overarching story structure kind of made it a bit less appealing and exciting for me. But I still enjoyed it. So yeah, that's sort of my mini review of the movie. Anyways, that's probably going to do it for me today. Sorry if I sound congested, because I am. I'm still congested for some fucking reason. Still recovering from this stupid cold. Anyways, before I get any of you sick, this has been Save the Semantics, signing off.